So I'm going to try to talk about the past, present, and future of e-NABLE, focusing on the recipe of open source, volunteer-made, 3D printed prosthetics. The past, of course, is to say that people have been crafting prosthetics for as long as people can craft. And by the way, this presentation comes from Enabling the Future, one of the key websites you can go to see more about this. My involvement began when I saw a YouTube video describing the evolution of this primitive 3D printed prosthetic by a South African carpenter and a Washington State puppeteer, two non-prosthetists. It was an international collaboration by these two men, Ivan Owen and Richard Van Az, and from the start, it took advantage of open source, 3D printed, volunteer-made prosthetics. That created an explosion of activity and a proliferation of designs, all descended from that original model because it was open source, it was 3D printable, and it was prosthetic for children. So there are now thousands of pictures like this, but it's important to note that while this kid has a new Wolverine-themed superhero hands, those kids, because it was open source, got involved in the process of creating them. And this guy, the father of young Luke, was able to cook up a two-thumbed hand because he was not a prosthetist and he was solving a problem that he and his son would be thought would be cute to solve. Peregrine made a hand with his father, made many hands with his father, and produced his own personal self-expression, a bare-clawed e-NABLE hand. And Aaron Westbrook was able to use these designs, get a hand for himself, and start making hands for other people. These are what are possible if it's open source, 3D printed, and available to everyone. And that also allows people like Skip and me and others to begin building on these and developing new approaches. The new approaches that are emerging are, for the developing world, more natural-looking devices. And here, by the way, you see someone with our arm, and if you watch carefully, you'll see her popping this thing on and off the way you and I would put a pencil behind our ear. That's a mode of activity that we frankly haven't been used to. I have a feeling this has thwarted your auto advance, so if you want to push me forward, no, okay. And indeed, similarly, our wacky RIT arm, elbow actuated with PVC pipe, led to a number of other arms, which are becoming more diverse, but also more cosmetic. The future has to do with collecting data and this continuing process of trying to create tools for matching and for follow-up and for promoting this global network of volunteers using open source, 3D printing, collaboration to try to get data to improve the ability of chapters from all over the world to develop their own localized solutions using this shared intellectual property, this shared values, to collaborate using the Google Plus community to share their stories. And so solutions that are cooked up in one place and one continent spread to other places and other continents, and a global community comprised increasingly of chapters all over the world are now developing personal expressions, solving local problems, developing new approaches, and that's e-NABLE. And that's my story. Thank you.